I'm Will, I'm the Bald Book Geek, and this is Books on Screen. What I've been doing with this whole Books on Screen thing is just pulling films. I've picked books that I love that have film or television adaptations. And so far, the two that have come out the hat have been two books I loved, Queen of the Damned, Northern Lights by Philip Pullman, that have been turned into two horrible, terrible movies. Queen of the Damned, with Aaliyah in it, and that god-awful Golden Compass mess. So, yay. I sat through those for you. But this, on the other hand, is a book that I love and a film that I love. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This is an unusual adaptation. So we'll start with the book. The book is written in letter form. It's about Charlie, his experience in 1991 going to high school, and him as a young man with obviously some problems. But he's also genuinely nice. And this book deals with very uncomfortable subject matter, from being bullied to drug use to sex to God to abortion. It's a beautifully written, charming, sweet book. Then on the other side of things, you have the film adaptation. The film adaptation is unique because it was directed by the same guy that wrote the book, which is unusual. And there was a film in development before that I'm so glad never happened, that was going to be a dark comedy starring Shia LaBeouf. And I can imagine that being terrible. I really can imagine that being, oh god, what am I watching? In casting, I think the cast of this film are perfect. They're imperfect, but perfect. They portray the characters so well. Emma Watson definitely stands out in this adaptation. She's a fantastic actress, but all of them in this film are spectacular. And I cannot fault the cast. And it's oddly, I can't fault the changes, because there was some stuff that was breezed over, like the scene where he drives his sister to have an abortion and stuff like this. And a lot of people said it was to get the film a lower age rating, and actually, to quote the director, it's because it didn't flow right on screen. The adaptation of this works beautifully, and obviously the letter aspect does come into it. You do get that, but because it kind of fleshes things out, you see things in a different way. One criticism of the film is that someone said, oh, but how would they not know David Bowie wrote Heroes? And that's based on the writer and director's experience growing up as a teenager around the same time. We forget, in 1991, it's not like you could Shazam something, or go on YouTube and look at something, or go on iTunes or Amazon and just play some samples, or Google a person's discography. It didn't work that way. To quote the director, David Bowie to him in the 90s was 80s music, just dance. And he didn't know about the 70s stuff. It's one of those weird films that genuinely touches me, and I've talked about The Perks of Being a Wallflower on this channel before. It's one of my favourite books, and it's one of those books, and the film, that just, it's in like my top 10 films of all time. The book is in my top 10 of all time. They find you at the right moment. The book found me as a teenager, and I probably relate to Charlie far more than I should. Bit of an introvert, a little bit strange. Overall, just a charming, sweet story that dealt with real issues. It doesn't talk down to the reader. This book is one of the most challenged due to its nature. More so, not in England, but in the US, where people get offended a lot more than here and don't like real life. We could start a whole debate on that one. But you have this beautiful, charming story, this cast of spectacular characters, and it's one of the few books where I'd love to know what happened to them after. I'd love to know what happened to Charlie and his friends. I'd love to see, the same with the film, I just would love to know. It's beautifully written, and the film is a beautiful adaptation. Some very surprising casting choices. Dylan McDermott pops up in this film, and he's a very underrated actor, but a very good actor. And also, the director quoted, to quote the director again, he wanted to give the actors a high school experience, and he told them they would make their best friends shooting this, and they did. And the prom scene is quite emotive because of that, and because I think the director flowed with the cast. He gave the cast an experience, and it shows. It looks like a fun set. It looks like, you know, you can watch the interviews and the things and everyone's just having a laugh and enjoying themselves. Genuinely a really spectacular adaptation, and one that I can criticise elements of it in the sense that I think the pacing of the film is a little bit weird, but then again the book also has some weird pacing in places, but I think that's more to do with how it's written and presentation of certain elements, and that's going to be true of any adaptation of this. I also think the one criticism I did find is I don't know how... It's a very softened 1990s. It's the era of mixtapes, high-waisted jeans, grunge, weird indie bands, people rediscovering when the Smiths were considered a weird indie band. They're still a weird indie band, but you know what I mean. It echoes an experience. It's the pre-internet days, it's the pre-iPhone, it's the pre-social media. And you just have these characters who are all fish out of water, that are all a bit broken in some way, that heal and deal with it in their own way. I think this is one of those films and books that you need to read and watch. I think you can enjoy both on equal measure. I think they're both beautifully written, both equally charming, and just very different ways of presenting the same story. I'm so glad I picked this one. So tell me guys, what did you think of The Perks of Being a Wallflower? Have you read it? Have you watched the film? Did you, just go out there and tell me, because it will be fascinating. And comment, like and subscribe. Please share my videos as always, because we need those views, people. We need those views. And please hit that little bell icon, because simply put, YouTube is a bit broken right now and people aren't being told that I'm doing videos. So hey ho. See you later guys. Bye.